right? Identity is a huge part of it. Identity, like, because before we share something, we're always asking ourselves the question, if I share this, will this make me look cool? We all do it. We all do it. Well, if I share this, will this make me look smart? This is the reason why people share, like, aggressively share articles from, say, The New Yorker, Harvard Business Review. Do you know how boring The New Yorker is? It's like really, really boring. Like most people don't read it. Actually, there was like interesting studies showing that for business press, only 1 in 4 articles that was shared, the user scrolled. Just think about that for a second. It means 1 in 4 times when your friend shared it, your friend shared an article on like any business website or whatever, there was only a 1 in 4 chance that he actually scrolled before sharing it. Meaning he didn't read it. Because we're not actually sharing those things because we got value from them. We're sharing them because it makes us look good, and we want to be helpful, right? We want to share this. Like I think I didn't read it, but like this, I mean, this sounds interesting. People probably find this interesting. Share, bam. So like, there's all these different reasons why people share. So yes, to go back to your question, there's some things like if you're selling toilet paper, it's really hard to go viral. If you do, you've got one of those brands where you're willing to take some risks. Fashion's definitely tough. Like it's not even necessarily a good thing if you're in high fashion and it goes viral because it could be like, people making fun of it. Now, going viral within your community is a different story. It's different. But there's definitely, if you're selling like really boring business services, like you're just not going to go viral, and you shouldn't even try. It's not a very good marketing strategy.
Question?
Yeah. Hi, guys. My name is Brandon Hammer, and I just wanted to pose to each of you that in your individual comments, you've all had a very unique perspective on positivity. I've heard erudite. I've heard aligning with your passion, otherwise the funding doesn't matter. I've heard inspiring others through the content that you put out there. I've heard empowering people to share their story to motivate other people. And I've heard being soft and acknowledging about how not to come on top of somebody when they want to crack a bobsled joke. So in each of your own individual ways, you all have this air about you that is positive and is reinforcing. And so what I'd like to know is what suggestions might you have, or what advice might you have for the room here to not go into the digital sphere, but creating calls to action that are doing and committing to real change on important matters here, whether it's the state budget crisis or whether it's social services or something that's wrong with your community park. How, or could you guys share with us some thoughts that you might have about creating that call to action, and what advice you might have for making some really incredible change like what Nick's trying to do with Glappitnova?
I'll jump in, I'll be super brief. It's really important. I think we're motivated to become something and do something with our lives. That's why we're here, right? To advance our personal development. And that's, sometimes it can be overwhelming. And so you can put your head down in the sand and focus only on your problem. And I think that's a really bad choice that we make. Is because in the time that we focus only on that problem, we don't look at the size of us, our peripherals, the world may not be around when you take your head out of the sand. And so we have to be cautious that while we're investing in ourselves, that we're also being conscious of our neighbors, right? It's like being neighborly. It's like, it's a little trite, but it's absolutely true. And so what I'm noticing is that as I become more involved with the communities across the state, it's freaking apparent that everyone's been heads down in their own box. And it's like, I don't really care about it's not that you don't care, but your lack of action is complacency, right? And so we've got to be cautious. It's like I'm not a swimmer by any chance, but every time your head's down, every time they take a head up, and they're going to look to the left just to take a breath. It's the extent of what we do. If we each did that, everyone's, there's attentiveness is going to be played to one another's efforts. The entrepreneurial community does it really well naturally. The problem is that we don't do that outside of ourselves. And that's, kind of my 2 cents.
Interesting. Got a question? Excuse me. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. So I wanted to focus on one of the things that every one of you have addressed to this point, which is a problem that you have been looking to address, but at the same time, problems that you all have had to overcome. And when I think about this problem, I really want to focus on data and how you are using data now as compared to when you were going through that problem, looking at data accumulation, as well as thinking about how you can look to monetize that alongside your efforts to build your separate businesses, and generally kind of what you're seeing on trends in the space as it comes to that front.
So what comes to mind right away? So I think compared to how much data that I use now, I didn't use any data before. The first thing I'd say is, like, whatever problem you're trying to solve, the first thing you should do that most people don't do intuitively is just try not to solve the problem at all by doing anything other than just saying who has already solved this problem. Your ideas are not unique. You're like the billionth person to try to figure out how to get customers for your small business, whatever your business is. Like, there are people who have written entire books that are just saying, like, hey, I know what kind of problems you have. I've been through them. Here's what you do. And so you're trying things that are not going to work. You're trying all kinds of like terrible things you could find out very quickly are not going to work. You can get this through mentorship. You can get it through reading. You can get it through research. But like, do those things. Like, do them. It is amazing to me how many entrepreneurs I meet with, and they're like, yeah, we can't figure out how to get customers. And I'm like, okay, again, there's like a million other businesses who are similar to yours, and they, like, I can tell you that, like, if you just spend a couple hours studying what they have done to get customers, there's people who, like, there's books for everything now. There's an app for it. There's tools for everything. So data, going back to the data question, for example, tools. Okay, so there's an exponentially increasing amount of tools being created. Like products and services that are just designed to make your lives easier. Whatever you're trying to create. Everyone here is trying to create something, right? There's a tool that's going to make your life way, way better, right? It's going to save you dozens, hundreds, thousands of hours of time, or even thousands of dollars. All you have to do is find that tool. It's not hard, but you have to do a little bit of research. It might only be 2 hours tops. If you spend 1 hour a year just looking for tools that are relevant to you, like the ROI in that is going to be staggering. Like 10 to 1, 100 to 1, something like that. It's a good place to start. Like if you're trying to build a startup, like go to startupstash.com. It's just a directory of all the tools. Like there's something that will save you a ton of time or a ton of energy. It doesn't take very much time, but you got to go find that this tool exists. So one thing I do is I calendar in time. Once a month, I spend 1 hour just looking for new tools that exist, right? Product Hunt is another good place to find tools like this. And I just like send them to different teams, like, hey, this might be useful, this might be useful. And again, maybe like 1 in 5 times, one of these tools I send out is actually like, wow, this actually saved us like thousands of dollars a month, or this saved us hundreds of hours of time. So that's a good way to use data.
And I'm curious as to how you use data in making, you talked about making decisions, but I'm just curious as to how that question fits in.
Yeah. So I guess, a lot of what I do is based on the social front. And our main platform that we use to market is YouTube, which is a lot of people use Facebook and, Twitter and Instagram to whatever value they can get out of it. But using YouTube is very interesting because it's all content based. There's no you can place ads on YouTube and whatnot, but the way to really provide value is to create original content. And we do get a lot of that analytics back on, how many people view our videos, how long they watch the videos, whether they drop off after 2 or 3 minutes, how many people subscribe per video, how many people like and dislike. And we track that. We load basically all those numbers into like a spreadsheet, and we can see like trends over time. So we can look back and see like, okay, these, in the last 6 months, we've done some content that is geared towards advanced users, and we've done some content that was geared towards very, like beginner users, and that's the stuff that tends to drive like more subscribers and things like that. So basically by loading in all the analytics, and whatever you guys are using, whether it's Facebook or whatever, you can get analytics for all these things. And basically a lot of what we do is through intuition, creating content that we think will help out people. Every now and then we'll create a video that I think is like kind of maybe stupid or and it'll be a huge hit. And then we'll try to figure out why that is. I just did a Photoshop video on how to paint your walls in Photoshop, which is like you just use a selection tool and like select out your wall and then like use another tool and like change the color. Like it's the easiest thing ever, but there are people out there who are like, oh, that's helpful. I'm going to paint the wall in my house. Like, I want to see what that looks like before I actually do it. And we had the idea to do that episode based on looking at other numbers that were like, okay, this is like a practical use that people could have in their own lives. So, I guess in that case, in that way, we use the numbers to try to figure out trends as far as what content we create, tends to stick with people, and then try to replicate that content as well as we can. That's cool.
And I mean, from an athlete standpoint, like even just specifically about me pushing a bobsled, like I'm basically trying to figure out the most efficient way to push this 300-something pound sled as fast as I can down the ice and hop in and be really quick. I'm not the first person to ever try and figure that out. So one thing I had to learn through the sport is to kind of embrace my competition, embrace the history of the sport, and research. Like, I'm not scared to record another girl who may be the top in the world, what she's doing at the start, and kind of analyze it. We use a lot of tools, like he said. We have these apps, this Coach's Eye, and all these apps where you can measure the angle that you're pushing the sled in. Every 100th of a second counts for us in our sport. So I'm trying to make sure my driver, the one steering the sled, has everything they need, confidence, the momentum, everything to get down the track as fast and as efficient and safe as possible. So all that stuff comes in handy. And I grew as a person by embracing the sport because I had to let my pride aside sometimes. Like, you don't know all the answers. And like he said, there's someone that's already accomplished what you're trying to do. So being open to that and just like kind of doing your research, talking to people. It's weird. In the sport of bobsled, for women, for the national team, there are 3 teams under that. So it's 3 different USA sleds for women. And so we're all essentially teammates, but like a light switch, you have to go compete on the line and want to beat everybody. And then as soon as you come through the finish line, you got to help your teammate move the sled. And we're really hands-on. We do everything for our sport. Move the sled, sand the runners, grit by grit. So you got to be able to turn that competitiveness on and off. And I think that even stems into life and the business world. And you got to know when to leave that pride and everything aside and kind of see what your competition is doing, learn from their mistakes, learn from their success, and kind of take that in and then make it your own situation and help build your success from it.
That's a great answer. You got something to say?
I'm Greg, U of I.
Oh, yeah.
My question is actually for Hillary. I was just wondering a bit more on your background and, like just kind of in general, how you linked up with all of these amazing people.
Sure. I did go to school for broadcast journalism, and I wanted to be a sports reporter, and I never got that reporting job. So I moved to Chicago, still sending out my demo tape, and then I quickly realized that I wanted to have these more meaningful conversations, but I took a sales job just so I could live here in Chicago, and created the website. I figured if no one's going to hire me, I'll just do something myself, and I just was not afraid to reach out to anyone. So I had to all of a sudden become, send out press requests. And I just shot for the stars and didn't think anyone was too big to do an interview. And we got 1,000 no's and, one yes here and there. And it started with friends and people here in Chicago who were just so nice enough. I'm today so grateful that they gave us their time, but I just was never, I didn't know what I was doing either. So I, guest email addresses. I found artist managers on their Facebook pages. I joined IMDb Pro, and, I kept my emails short and sweet, and again, a million feel like they were going out to outer space. But every now and then you get a little lucky break, and I just learned as I went along.
So it sounds like it's about getting out there and making shit happen. Not being afraid to email this person or speak to that individual and just at least to try
What's the
something.
worst that could happen? You get a no. And I actually like no's because now if they respond, I'm like, now I have your email. So then in 2 years, when I come back around and say, oh, look, we just did John Legend. Do you want to be on a drink with now?
Yeah.
Now I have the person to go to right away. So I think even like a response, a no, is like a mini win.